Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to the Skating Penguin Network, everyone. It is Robbie here again, and we are back. It is June. It is the evening of June the 5th. And once again, I am joined by Snail out in Seattle. So I don't know about what it's like out there. It is hot here in Western Pennsylvania the last 2 days. We finally cracked like 80 degrees 2 days in a row. So getting caught up on some warm weather here. But how are things out in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, we're about to hit 80 this weekend for the first time this year. I don't know about you guys. I know it's definitely, actually, I can almost guarantee it's different out in Western PA, but out here, there's like a running joke that like summer doesn't start till the day after the 4th of July. Like typically out here, 4th of July is always a dreary day. And then July 5th, boom, it's summer. But we're getting a taste of, we're ramping up into summer weather. It's like probably it's low 70s today. And then this weekend, it's going to hit 85 and then it's going to cool back down. And I imagine it's going to be another kind of like slow ramp up. And then once we get to July, we're off and running. But 85 a couple of days in a row out there has got to be so much different than here because you guys get that humidity. Has it been sweaty out there?
These 2 days haven't actually been too bad. Now, there is some rain rolling in tonight, so I can't really say what tomorrow is going to be like. I do know that the temperature is supposed to drop a little bit, but it seems like the actual like chilly days are probably behind us. But humidity-wise, it hasn't been awful yet, but that's usually like a July, August situation too, unless we get like a big storm that rolls through in June, and the wet just never goes away. So. No, I mean, it's been, 2 nice warm days. It's going to fluctuate up and down, at least for like the next week, but not too cold and not too hot. So it's going to be at least summer-ish weather rather than needing to wear a jacket on May 31st.
Those days are behind us.
Hopefully.
I think I'll maybe have to break out a sweatshirt, but jackets are gone. I think
for sure. Yeah. I think jackets are hopefully behind us for now. So, but no, other than that, the weather's been good. It's June. The Stanley Cup Final has started. We'll talk a little bit about that here at the end of this episode. But we have to lead off with big news and the reason why we're here. After a lengthy search, a few weeks, the Pittsburgh Penguins have a new head coach, the 23rd head coach in team history. And it is a bit of a dark horse candidate after a bunch of names were thrown around. And in the end, Kyle Dubas hires former New York Rangers assistant head coach, former coach of the United States National Development Team, Dan Muse, to be the next head coach to lead the Penguins into this next era of Penguins hockey. And we thought Mitch Love, DJ Smith's name was thrown around. Jay Woodcroft was in there. But Dan Muse is the one who emerges as the winner in this sweepstakes. And when it was announced, everybody kind of had the same reaction of, who is this guy?
You know what my reaction was when I got this news? When you and my cousin texted me pretty early in the morning. My cousin's got 3 kids, so he's up pretty much at the time when Robbie, if you were to text me in the morning, because it's 3 hours ahead.
Yeah.
Do you know who Michael Rappaport is?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember his viral moment when they drafted that one player and he says, "Who the hell is Tingus Pingus?"
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget the actual player's name, which is so disrespectful because he's just butchering his name on purpose. But that was my reaction. I was like, "Who the hell is Tingus Pingus?" I was actually taken aback when I saw that. And then I went I was mad at first. I was like, of course Dubas is going to go off the board. Everyone thinks it's Mitch Love. Maybe Jay Woodcroft comes across at the last minute and gets an in-person interview, and he's the guy that they end up going with. Maybe he's a little bit more. He had success. He's the most well-known head coach out of the lot that we were dealing with. You could argue. But I was almost kind of pissed, and then I was like, I talked to you a little bit. I actually called Robbie. The listeners, when this comes out 2 days ago, I called you about, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 o'clock my time. And I just had to get your 2 thoughts, or, I had to get your 2 cents, on what you thought of this hire, because I just haven't known how to really feel yet about it. It caught me super off guard. I'd never heard of him. From what I understand, he's Peter Laviolette's little minion that he's kind of taken with him from Nashville to New York. And he's got some experience with some younger players, and yeah, dude. So that was my candid reaction to the hiring. Now it sounded like you had a little bit more knowledge of this guy. So why don't you set us up with more so kind of what your thoughts were regarding the news?
Yeah. So I do. Back when Mike Sullivan was first let go, there was all those lists that came out on this guy could be the next Penguins head coach, who to look out for. And I do remember seeing his name amongst 9 or 10 others. So the only time that his name really popped up for me was at the very beginning when people were just throwing out names to see who might stick. As the weeks went along, it kind of narrowed down to, you heard Mitch Love, like I said, you heard DJ Smith, you heard Jay Woodcroft's name was thrown around. Drew Bannister was even mentioned as well. So yeah, some familiar names were thrown around there, but Dan Muse, the next time I heard his name was when Elliot Friedman tweeted out on Wednesday. It sounds like there's momentum growing for Dan Muse to be the next coach of the Penguins. And then, minutes later, the Penguins made the official announcement. I did have to go back and look and do some research on him outside of just hearing his name in passing. I had to get some info on here. He was assistant coach at Yale, where he was a part of a national championship winning team. He coached the Predators under Peter Laviolette. He helped them to the season where they won the President's Trophy in 2018. He led the Chicago UCHL team to the Clark Cup, which is the USHL championship. It's kind of like the Memorial Cup if you're a Canadian listener. He coached the U.S. Hockey National Development Team, won a IIHF World Under-18 Championship. He's coached players like Logan Coley, Ryan Leonard, Will Smith, and a familiar name, Rucker McGroarty, as well. He has coached there. He joined Peter Laviolette back in New York before the 23-24 season, spent 2 seasons there, and there was talk that he was going to remain there with Sullivan, but the Penguins swooped in and made him their new head coach. So, yeah, he's bounced around. He's worked with a lot of young players. That is kind of one of the keys here, but he has coached teams that have had success. He has been coaching on staffs that have had success from the USHL to college to the NHL. So, he knows what success looks like at every level. And now he brings that to the Penguins, which is obviously very important. He is young. He is only 42 years old. That is only, if you're keeping track at home, 4 years older than Sidney Crosby, the captain of the team he will be coaching. But the big point here is to take home is the development aspect of this. He is known as being a developer. That is what the Penguins are entering, that era. This screams that Josh Yoder reported the Penguins were going to go young next year. This screams a move that that kind of backs up that point. You're going to see the McGroartys, the Koivunens, those young guys, Tristan Brose, and this goes even as far as to Sergei Murashov and Joel Blomqvist. This is going to be a youth movement, and Dan Muse is going to be the guy leading that. So, yeah, a lot to learn about this guy, but the key takeaway is he works well with the young guys. He is known for developing. He has worked with some very good talent for Team USA that is now players that are in the league. So, yeah, it's from if this is what Dubas foresees for the Penguins going forward with developing these young guys, it sounds like Dan Muse is a guy that this is right up his alley. Now, obviously, what the long-term plan is here, I don't know exactly, but for at least this season, and I'm assuming for a couple, Dan Muse will be the head coach of the Penguins entering this new era.
Yeah, and Robbie, just not to be, I think this is a good hire. I think when you hear like developmental coach, Mike Sullivan, let's face it, I don't think he wanted to be a developmental coach, and that's fine. He has his 2 cups. He's solidified in history. He's solidified in Penguins lore. He got a lot out of players that, when they went to other teams, just simply couldn't give those teams what they were able to give under Sullivan's system. Sullivan's long gone now. I mean, not long gone, but he's been out of the picture a while now. And it's exciting. There's going to be some bumps in the road. There's going to be pain. We can expect it's another year, no playoffs. This is one of those years I think we're fine with that, considering there's a golden goose at the end of the season that, it'll be interesting to see, how the Penguins do. I could see this season going. I'm not trying to like wishfully think playoffs into existence. They've missed 3 years in a row now. I'm bought into the rebuild, the retool, whatever you want to call it. But going back to my comments about Sullivan, it's going to be cool to see a coach that will probably be almost more eager to get some of this youth that the Penguins have marinating in the minors, overseas, wherever, and he's going to have the mind for that, and he's going to be excited for some of these young players that, you and me and other fans are excited to see, and he probably will be eager to put these guys into positions to, not only succeed, but if they have a bad game wherever, let's say McGroarty has a rough start to the season, I don't think it's going to be like the Sullivan way. It's definitely not going to be the way Sullivan would have coached, where maybe he bumps McGroarty down to the 4th line because he's trying to win matchups. He's trying to get points. This is going to be one of those things. If there's some pain in the opening, this is an example, in the first couple weeks of the season or down the road, he's going to keep them there probably and let them figure it out, so to say. And I'm excited for that. We did see a glimpse of it. We saw Koivunen and we saw McGroarty in the top 6 at the end of the season this last year. But next year, yeah, like you said, bros, Brunicky might get a look. There's still a lot of roster stuff to shake out with the veterans on this team, but man, it's definitely this move definitely kind of solidifies that it's kind of a new era in Pittsburgh. And you mentioned one name. We'll get into it later. Actually, I'll bring it up later. I was going to say some of these young guys. I did see Ponomarev is opting for the KHL. So do they still have his rights? If he wanted to come back over, do we still have his rights, or what's the deal with that?
So as far as I understand, he didn't actually sign anything with the KHL. His rights in the KHL were traded from one team to another. Now, he is a restricted free agent come July 1st. So he does have a decision to make. If he thinks he can make the Penguins, he can obviously sign a again, it won't be a lucrative contract, but he could sign a 1 year, 2 year deal to remain with the Penguins, and then stay in the system, hopefully earn a roster spot. If not, he could always sign a deal with the KHL team that now has his rights and just go home and play in the KHL. As for retaining his rights, nobody seemed to really know what the stipulations were if he would go to the KHL. Some people I saw, they think the Penguins would still retain his rights to re-sign him if he'd want to come back. But some people said that there is maybe some gray area that would have to be sorted out exactly. So nobody's 100% sure. It's probably some funky lawyer language in the CBA that would have to be sorted out. But as of right now, Ponomarev has not signed a contract with the KHL team that just acquired his rights. So he is still a Pittsburgh Penguins player until July 1st. Whether or not he signs a new contract or not is obviously up in the air. But there was some confusion yesterday when that news broke. I think there was a translation error between the Russian and the English language. And some people had to walk back what they were saying. So, yeah, his rights were acquired by a new team in the AHL, but he has not made a decision as to what his plans are for next season, whether that is in Pittsburgh or over in Russia.
Okay, that clears things up a little bit, because I saw that report and I was like, man, what a bummer time for a guy like Ponomarev to bounce out when he's going to get a coach that's probably going to be more eager to see what he's got and give him more ice time. You know, another player I was thinking about that maybe could use a coach like Dan Muse was, and unfortunately he's a black ace right now in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I was thinking that Puljujarvi that we loved last year, Puljujarvi, who was always kind of thrust into a situation where they needed him to just produce and expected to score and keep up with McDavid and Draisaitl and get into the playoffs. We talked about how his development has probably been botched over the years. And the looks that we saw of him in Pittsburgh last year under Sullivan, we never really saw any qualms, any reason why he should necessarily get scratched. He could pop in a few goals here and there, lay a big hit. He was fast. He was good in front of the net. I was kind of like, man, it kind of sucks that Puljujarvi's gone, because I would have liked to maybe see him get a role with the club. But anyways, there's going to be lots of new faces coming in and out, and a lot of it's going to be interesting to see him how he meshes with the veterans. Do you see any do you see any of the veterans on this team? And I'm not necessarily talking about Sidney Crosby. I doubt Sid. I think Sid's one of those guys. He's just, you don't really need to worry about him ego-wise. But do you see any veterans on this team, Robbie, that you might have any fear of, that they're going to have a hard time buying into what this 42-year-old guy is saying? Or maybe just, he's going to have to command that locker room. And Sullivan had the kids call it aura. Sullivan had aura. Sullivan had, that Boston voice. He was intense. I don't know necessarily the demeanor of this guy. Just looking at photos of him, I'm like, man, do you see any players maybe having a hard time buying into his message?
Not if they want to keep their jobs, because I don't think Kyle Dubas is going to be one to really have too much leash with anybody complaining like that. This is Dan Muse's team now. Obviously, Kyle Dubas is the one making the calls. And a lot of these guys, truth be told, not going to have to wait around very long to find out. They're here. They're on expiring contracts next year. A lot may be trade bait. So if they don't feel like, if they aren't happy with the guy, which I don't necessarily see, I don't foresee that in any way. Obviously, Crosby being the oldest of this bunch, but like Malkin's probably on his last year. Malkin won't be a problem. Malkin just wants to play hockey and play in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. Letang Carlson, I just don't. I don't foresee anything being an issue. Again, you got guys like Kevin Hayes, who is on the last year of a contract. Noah Chari will be on the last year of a contract. Russ and Raquel aren't going to be a problem. I personally don't see any issue. Again, these young guys, my biggest concern, and really what it makes me happiest, is Dubas didn't just go to the spinning wheel of former NHL coaches and picked which one it landed on. That's why I didn't necessarily want DJ Smith. Jay Woodcroft, I would have been okay with, just because I think that there is an offensive mind there that can be picked, and the situation in Edmonton was just it just wasn't working for anyone. But not to say that he can't right the ship somewhere else. But yeah, DJ Smith, it just kind of showed nothing in Ottawa, and like I know that Ottawa when he was there wasn't the best situation for a coach, but yeah, I mean I wanted a young guy, and we get a young guy. You get a guy that this is his first stop as a head coach. Whether or not it ends, however it ends, whether it's a transition coach to a big name in 3 or 4 years when the Penguins are back ready to compete for Stanley Cups, or this is the guy that it turns out that he can develop these guys and is the one to carry them back to the playoffs and eventual playoff success. I don't care. As long as it works out, at least in the retooling phase, we'll call that a win. But yeah, it's going to be a play it by ear thing. I know people are there's going to be enough fans this year that's going to drive us all crazy that say when they're not good, we got to fire this guy. The guy's going to be here for 3 or 4 years. You're going to have to put up with that. And that's just what you have to get through your head.
Yeah.
It's not going to be pretty, especially at first, but we know that. You have to go in there with the expectation that next year is going to be another long season. Obviously, you want to see them have success and make the playoffs, but I don't think that is the target goal in any way. I'd rather see these young guys come up, flourish, get some experience, and really start to turn the page on the next chapter of the Penguins.
Yeah, a lot of fans I know that it's been a long run of success in Pittsburgh, and there was a brief window that we just wrapped up where they were going to try to get back into playoff contention for another couple of runs with Sid and the gang. Didn't work out. We're holding on to first-round picks now. We're not firing coaches after a skid to try to get over any sort of hump. I mean, if you really want the bleak news, Robbie, not you, but fans maybe listening, this is going to be a stint where, like, you take a page out of the Flyers book not that long ago, where this team might be in a playoff spot for the first 3 months of the season, and it's going to come close to trade deadline. They're not giving away a first-round pick to give them a veteran to push them over the top. They're just going to stay the course. They might sell and actually get a little bit worse on purpose. It's going to be it's not uncharted waters in Pittsburgh, because, Robbie, that would be disrespectful to fans like you who have been there since pre-superstar eras where things were really dark. It's for a lot of fans, it's been a long time since they've been thinking and putting themselves in the shoes of like fans of other teams over the past decade, where you're keeping first rounders, you're developing players, you're going to have a coach that's probably going out there and he's on a 4 or 5 game losing streak, and you win one and then it's back on another skid. There's all sorts of scenarios where it's just going to be uncommon for Penguins fans. I think their instincts are going to be to, let's make this change. Look at Sid. He's wasting away here. No, Sid's here. He wanted to stay here. It's not like he's naive to what the team's going through, what the direction that the team has been going in. This is where we're at now.
Yeah, that is what people have to realize. This is where the Penguins are at for at least the next season, I'd say. And really, like I said, the big story is let's get these young kids developing. Let's get Ville Koivunen playing with Crosby, McGroarty playing with Crosby, and getting these guys some real NHL ice time, because I think we're at the point now where playing in the AHL is probably a level too low for most of these guys. I'm not saying all of them. You're not going to get a team. You're not going to call up your entire AHL team. Marshall can marinate down the A for another half season, depending on what all plays out. Again, there's a lot we still don't know. I mean, it is only June 5th. Sorry. There's a lot we don't know, and we're going to learn a lot, obviously, in the next month. We have drafts and signing periods and trades to be made, free agents to be signed, a whole lot of stuff to kind of play out over the coming weeks here. So really all we know right now is Dan Muse is the next head coach of the Penguins. Sidney Crosby is still there. Evgeny Malkin is still there. Brian Rust is still there. Ricard Raquel is still there. And we expect guys like Koivunen and McGroarty to be there as well. But a lot still has to shake out with how the Penguins line up come October, because we really, between drafts and trades and signings, a lot to kind of parse out. But this was like the big first step in getting on with the offseason.
After Zoomies at the dog park, it's time for Drive Up at Target. In goes a big bag of kibble and one squeaky chicken toy for the good boy. Drive Up that's ready when you are, only in the Target app. Just tap Target.
McCrispy strips are now at McDonald's. I hope you're ready for the most dippable chicken in McDonald's history. Dip it in all the sauces. Dip it in that hot sauce in your bag. Dip it in your McFlurry. Your dip is your business. McCrispy strips at McDonald's.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
This episode is brought to you by PetSmart. Stop by for Yappy Hour with your pet at PetSmart. Save $5 on walk-in grooming services like nail trims, ear cleaning, brushing, and more. No appointment needed every weekday from 2 to 6 p.m. And while you're there, Yappy Hour includes exclusive in-store deals, like 25% off pet toys. Visit services.petsmart.com/grooming to learn more.
Have you seen anything about maybe his, I don't know, staff? Like, has there been any staff announced that he's bringing with him? Because Vellucci is in Chicago now, and David Quinn is back in New York alongside Sullivan. So I haven't heard anything about the staff that has been told basically, we'll guarantee you an in-person interview if you can't find work elsewhere, which would just be an awkward situation. Robbie, you and I have both had different jobs. That would just be kind of weird. But have you heard anything about the staff that he might be bringing with him, or people that might be staying put in Pittsburgh?
As far as I've heard, nothing. It does sound like David Quinn is off to New York with Mike Sullivan. Ty Hennis, who was the Penguins' skills coach on the bench, he is also going to New York with Sullivan, I believe, as well. Sullivan was the guy that originally brought him to Pittsburgh, so there's a connection there. We know Andy Chiodo, the goaltending coach, has been let go. Mike Vellucci is now an assistant in Chicago, and so as far as we know, the only coach on the staff right now, at least one that will be behind the bench, is Dan Muse. Now, what Kyle Dubas or how they handle the assistant coaches, I don't know if that's going to be. It's probably going to be a collective effort, but it would not surprise me if they have I want to say a veteran, like a guy that used to be a head coach, but like a veteran assistant coach they bring in to kind of help Muse out, being that this is his first head coaching job at this level. So it would not surprise me even if it's somebody that you might not be familiar with, but has been around the block in the NHL a time or two, coaching up to one kind of guide Muse and kind of coach up some of these players as well. But again, they want to put these players in a position to succeed, even if it's not winning every night. So I think the Dubas, it sounds like for the most part, he still has a mostly blank check to go out and bring in who he needs to. So I would assume that they're going to staff with some experience and be kind of a collective input of who they put back there. But I'd expect here within the next week or so, if even that long, to get a pretty good idea of who we'll be looking at behind the bench next season, along with Muse.
Yeah, looking forward to that as well. It'll be I could see that too, Robbie, just them bringing in maybe like a little bit more of a veteran type presence, just to, they don't have to be the coach making the hard decisions. They can be the one kind of You remember Tocchet, he was really good at managing relationships with the veterans and the youth respected what he was saying and all that. I'm sure there'll be some speculation coming out on social media on maybe who we're looking at to be his cohorts behind the bench.
Yeah. So keep an eye out for that. We'll definitely find out here in the next it's a couple days, week maybe, who all, because we're getting really down to the crunch time now that this part is kind of done and settled. They have the coach. Now it's time to get to work on the season. So
yeah, then the draft is coming up quicker and quicker.
I believe the 27th is the draft. Yeah. And then less than a week later is July 1st, which is the start of free agency. Combines are already going on.
Mm-hmm.
That they have meetings with coaches to get the game plan ready. I know that Dubas, that's kind of why his deadline, he said his deadline was June 1st. It ended up being June 4th, but he wanted to get a coach in place before they have these basically all hands on meetings to get their strategy set for the offseason and the draft, scouting and all that. So a lot of stuff's going to be happening here pretty quick now. But first, before we get to that, there's a Stanley Cup final to play. And we are one game in. It is the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers, if you've been living under a rock. And if game one was any indication, give me 6 more of it, because, I mean, maybe it's time. I don't know. Maybe it is just their time. Edmonton battles back in this game. They're down 3-1. They get 2 goals. It's 3-3. And then it's the McDavid-Draisaitl show in overtime to win it. And there's really no lead safe against a team like Edmonton, even a team as good as Florida. Bobrovsky played his head off, and they still lost this game. Again, Florida's going to bounce back. They're not going to get rattled. But, man, what a way to start this Cup final.
That's what I want. Like you said, just give me 6 more of that. I want my Stanley Cup final to be neck and neck. Just, I want drama. It was an awesome. You can tell these guys, I don't want to say hate each other, but the competitiveness on both sides is so. I mean, these guys we've talked about it on here before, Robbie. Like, if you've ever known anyone that played, like, not even necessarily like a professional athlete, but people that played like college or people that played semi-pro or something, these types of athletes, they're wired so differently than the average person. They're freaks. But when you look at these group of freaks on each of these bents, these guys are like some of these players, competitive wise, would probably even push the boundaries for like the average pro athlete who's already a freak. Like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are insane. Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett. I don't know. It's just, this is the type of Stanley Cup final that I'm trying to watch at the end of it, at the crescendo of every season. And they did not disappoint. There was star power. There was chippiness. The goaltenders were both, spotlights were on both goaltenders. And you in this series, you cannot hide if you're a player out there. There's no hiding anyone. Everyone's getting involved physically. The goaltenders are being tested. Depth is being tested. The stars are on display. Like, it's just these are the 2 best teams. And, these aren't teams that won the President's Trophy. These aren't teams that had immaculate records. These teams were actually load managing towards the end of the season. And even at times, Florida can put their hand up for this, even during the playoffs, even a little bit of load management with some of their star players. I think they both finished like 2nd or 3rd within their respective divisions. And this is what they've been waiting for, and they're back. And like you said, I mean, maybe it's time. I'm tempted to give out. I don't want, because I'm going to come out and say I want Edmonton to win so bad. I want a cup back in Canada. I would also like, McDavid, at times I felt like his career was being wasted in Edmonton. And the media has shared this sentiment as well, Robbie. I think at times we've talked about this. We've loved to go down the list of blunders that the Edmonton Oilers have had. The Nail Yakupovs, the fumbling of the Puljujarvi picks, the all the other first overall picks or high picks that they've had, and never really have been able to put much together since they went to that Cup final in, what was that, 2006?
Yeah,
or something like that. So, the reason I'm pretty on board with the Oilers, I want them to win, is, I'd like it would be so lame if McDavid was like a Joe Thornton. I don't want him to be a Joe Thornton. He's not Joe Thornton. He's so much better than him. Like it's not the same argument, but could you imagine if McDavid was like an Iginla, like one of those players that never got the Stanley Cup with how good he is? Yeah. Like I don't want to hear Canadian media talk about this every summer or every postseason about McDavid. I want him to get his cup. I think Draisaitl is one of my favorite players to watch. He's a Western leaguer coming out of the West out here. He's like a quasi Canadian. Sometimes you forget he's German, even with his accent. And you know what I think, Robbie, too? Everyone's saying this is going 7. I don't think this is going 7. I think that the Oilers might spank the Florida Panthers, and it's not going to be blowouts. But I know
what you mean, though. Yeah.
I think that they are going to find ways to win, no matter whether it's at home, on the road. I think that, dude, people talk about, we were just spending a lot of time talking about head coaches with Dan Muse coming into Pittsburgh. Knobloch, he pulls every string he pulls is the right one. It's amazing to watch. So I think that this series might be, I think it's going to be shorter than 7 games. I don't want to say sweep, but I'm thinking maybe 5 games.
I just think at some point, and like you saw it last night at times, McDavid and Draisaitl just overwhelm the other team. And they spend a lot of time on the ice together, and that's easier to do at home, obviously. But the numbers with them on the ice last night together against the Panthers, it was like if you put a team out there against like a beer league team. Like the numbers were so lopsided. It was like a beer league hockey where one team is like the 45-year-olds that have been
and drunk.
And drunk against a bunch of college, like just out of college tryhards. That
that's a good analogy for sure.
And they just like the 45-year-old drunks are just there to have a good time, where like the 22-year-olds are taking it way too seriously, but they're clearly better.
Yeah.
At just some point, they just overwhelm you. And it's going to be interesting to see how Florida adjusts to that once they get on home ice, because last night, Knobloch just exploited that matchup and the last change so well that if it wasn't for Bobrovsky, that game's probably over easily in regulation. And if that keeps up, it is ever since they won that game against LA to make it 2-1. It's just felt like McDavid and Draisaitl, you're just not going to stop them. And again, even without Zach Hyman now, they just throw Jeff Skinner into the lineup and he's scoring goals. I don't know where this Kasperi Kapanen was when he was in Pittsburgh 2 different times.
It's a body double.
It is. It must be, because he almost scored the goal that everybody dreams about last night to win it in overtime. Just missed and hit the post. He's been very good. He has a overtime series ender against Vegas. He is playing great hockey. The depth is so much better this year. Evan Bouchard is just he just turns it on in the playoffs. Stuart Skinner has just been competent enough. Like Skinner doesn't need to do anything fancy. He just needs to be an average goaltender, and they're going to win the Stanley Cup. And maybe that's what he needed, was getting pulled early in the playoffs for Calvin Pickard, and just a mental reset, because he's been very good since then. Just so much about what they're doing just feels like destiny. And man, when McDavid and Draisaitl get wound up, it's so fun to watch, especially when it's not happening against your team. I just know that the Panthers, I know they won the cup last year, but those dudes are going to be having nightmares about those two for years.
100%. Yeah, it's going to be I mean, in Florida's like, it's not even like, I mean, Florida might have been favored coming into this. Like, it's not like Florida's like limping in or anything like that. They're so good. They're such a good hockey team. Sam Bennett leads the playoffs in goals. Like
12 goals.
That guy will score you 12 goals during the regular season and like do a bunch of questionable stuff to a star player on your team. Then when it comes to playoffs, he's Wendell Clark. Like he's just unreal. You know, I was thinking in Robbie, I don't know if you're much of a conspiracy theory type guy, but sometimes I can find myself going down that road a bit. And I was like, man, the Oilers are like, and obviously I pull all of this because I've watched the Penguins race Stanley Cups. And, you know, it seems like they have like the formula right now. Like they don't like Hyman going out for the Stanley Cup final. It reminds me of like when they lost like Letang, or like you have to win the Stanley Cup. You have to be missing like a key player. You have to have a goaltender that's lost his net at a certain point, like Fleury, you know? And then how are people not more drawing the comparison of Sid and Gino to McDavid and Draisaitl? Like McDavid and Crosby, obviously, you know, don't come at me, but I know that they're different players, but like the prodigy, the superstar, like the Canadian prodigy superstar, comparable. Gino and Draisaitl, you know, they're Europeans. I know that Draisaitl's German, Malkin's Russian, but they're so tall and like lanky and skinny, but like have like this unbelievable skill and talent. Both on, you know, Gino wasn't the most defensive-minded player. Draisaitl's kind of turned it around. I'm not trying to get into the nitty-gritty about details, but there's a loose sort of foundation for what this Oilers team is cooking with right now that is very reminiscent of pretty much every year the Penguins have won a cup. Do you get what I'm putting down?
Yeah, I definitely get what you're putting down. One thing that this has made me realize watching the Oilers is I wish, like at the ages of Crosby and Malkin, like if they were the age of Crosby or McDavid and Draisaitl, I wish it would have been Bausma and Sullivan. They would have leveraged those two on the ice more than what they did together. Because you had the depth, especially in 16 and 17, where you had, at least in 16, you had the HBK line, which was its own beast. You weren't breaking that up at all.
They torched the playoffs.
But you easily could have thrown out. Again, they did throw these guys, but it would happen at like the last minute, 45 seconds of a period. Why not? Again, McDavid and Draisaitl, if it's a close game, like if it's tied or they're down by one, they're out there killing penalties together and changing the way that you have to kind of run your own power play. Because if you turn it over once, you sprung one of them the other way, and obviously they're probably the two best scorers outside of Nikita Kucherov in the game right now. But like maybe they should have leveraged Crosby and Malkin more together on the ice in special circumstances in the middle of periods when you were down one or tied and you needed that crucial goal, throwing them on a penalty kill if you got the opportunity, just giving them more ice time together, because at their peaks, they were just unstoppable freakazoids as well.
100%.
We kind of like, you may have memory hold it a little bit because it's been they're on the back end of their careers, but this is kind of what these guys were doing. I mean, maybe we just should have leveraged that more rather than, okay, there's 45 seconds left in the period, we're just going to throw you guys out there, you're not going to change, and then we'll start the next period. Just put them together a little bit more and take that force and just make it it's just so much talent that you can just overwhelm an opponent so quickly, especially when you have the depth like they did in those Stanley Cup years, like the Oilers do now.
You bring that up, Robbie, and like, you know, I've made it abundantly clear on here. Sometimes, whether it's during the regular season, but mostly in the off season, I like to drink a couple of ice cold beers, and I like to sit in my chair and I watch old Penguins games from dating back to Mario Lemieux days up until, gosh, I've watched ones even as recent as, 2021. But I love throwing on games from that early era of the Malkin, Crosby, when they were both playing together, those first 3 years. I loved seeing when they'd show the opening lineup, and sometimes you just see Malkin on Sid's wing, like drawn up. Of course, he wouldn't stick there for long, but you're 100% right. That's something that I feel like that was a lethal weapon that they could have unleashed far more times. And, almost they could have relied on that. Like sometimes, like you said, last 2 minutes of the game, maybe Sully would throw them out there together. But like when you see, dude, do you think if you were Seth Jones on the power play and McDavid and Draisaitl are killing the penalty and they're coming up on a 2-on-1 against you on the shorthanded, would that just melt your shorts off?
Probably. I mean, that's terrifying. You can't pinch in that situation.
No, it actually takes away some options for you on your power play when you're supposed to be a man up and on the advantage. When you've got McDavid and Draisaitl, and McDavid could pick your pocket and send Draisaitl alone for a breakaway, but then you got McDavid with speed coming in for support. I mean, good luck.
And you're backwards, like you're skating backwards, and you're
an offensive defenseman at that too, which you don't like skating backwards.
You don't like skating backwards. You're already probably a step behind just because you have to get your momentum's taking you the wrong way, and you have two guys that are faster skaters than you in a straight line, regardless.
That's $450 a year,
and that's and I mean, and worst case is you end up with four forwards on a power play, and one of your forwards is playing the point, and they don't like skating backwards at all unless they have to use it to get going. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare situation that completely changes the way you run your power play.
What a luxury the Oilers have that their superstars are just willing to go out and kill penalties,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much. Again, that's kind of a in-game load management. You only deploy it at certain points. If you're up 4 goals, you're probably not going to put them out in the penalty kill.
No.
If you're down 4 goals, depending on the game, if it's like 10 minutes to go in the third period, you're probably not going to waste their energy on that. But if it's the playoffs and it's 2-1 or 2-2, and you go the penalty kill, and you get a chance to change momentum, or at least even just get a scoring chance, and kill as much penalty as possible, man, you put those two guys out there, and that's not even. And they have other options as well. It doesn't have to just be those two guys. They got other guys that can score as well. So, but yeah, that would be. I mean, you have to completely head on a swivel. Have to be very conservative on the power play if those guys are on the other end killing it, because one mistake, it's going the other way, and I'm gonna feel pretty confident it's gonna end up in the back of your net.
Yeah, no, with those guys, it's just it's nightmare fuel. See them barreling down on a 2-on-1, whether they're shorthanded or not. So, but I agree with your sentiment that it does kind of make you almost feel some secondhand envy seeing those guys play together like that, where that Malkin and Sid, I was just waxing poetic about how there's comparables there between the 4 of those players. And it would have been nice to maybe this year you'll see him deploy a little bit more. Like, I know you're going to have a youth bump and you're going to want to see the youth playing with Sid, but at some point you might be wondering where you're going to stick Gino, because if he doesn't have the wheels anymore, you always move those centermen who are getting old to the wing, and maybe they have a hell of a year with Gino on Sid's wing, or vice versa. It could go the other way too.
Yeah, it's going to be really, again, a lot to play out for the Penguins offseason to see what exactly they might deploy. But, I mean, you're going to probably have that first line of Crosby, Malkin, or Crosby, Rust, and Raquel back together. One of the best first lines in hockey last year, even with the Penguins struggling. So, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Head coaches in the fold now, so all we basically got to do is watch some hockey for the next couple of weeks, and then the fireworks really start.
Literally, 4th of July will be upon us.
Yeah, 4th of July is what's today? It's actually 4 weeks tomorrow. So, crazy. It goes fast, and Penguins have already been done for almost 2 months now. And a lot's happened. A lot's happened in 2 months.
Yeah, it has. And Robbie, before we wrap up here, I did want to get your opinion on this, just for listeners' sake, because I hear it the last few years, especially. I really started to hear it a lot more once we got out of COVID, those COVID shortened years. But where are you at with the Stanley Cup? Probably being handed out, maybe the second week of June. Do you feel like it's gone on a little too long? Like, do you feel like they should start earlier in order to have, hockey wrapped up before June?
Yeah. So the Penguins back in '92 played. They won the Stanley Cup in Game 4 against the Blackhawks on June 1st in '92. It's the first ever NHL game played in June. This year's Stanley Cup could wrap up as late as, I believe, the 20th or 21st. So you're adding on almost 3 complete weeks of the season. And even with the break for Four Nations this year, it doesn't, even when they have the All-Star break, it doesn't really change. We're still ending at the same time. Again, that's not going to happen. The right answer is to maybe chop 10 games off the regular season, make a 72-game season, start the playoffs last week of March or something like that. It's like, even when the Penguins were in the final, like, I don't feel like hockey anymore. Like, it's 90 degrees. I don't feel like hockey right now. Like, it just, and even now, like, I love watching the finals, but like, it was 85 yesterday. That didn't really feel like hockey weather.
No.
It just, and again, it's gonna, in the long run, it's gonna be better for the players. I think you can make up 10 games worth of revenue somewhere along the line. I don't think it's gonna drastically. They always say it's gonna change this, that. It's not gonna drastically change all that much.
Those billionaires that are super afraid of losing 10 games worth of gate revenue. It's so like, dude,
you'd probably take off 5 home games, 5 away games. You lose 5. Each team loses 5 games worth of revenue. I guarantee you, if you bump concessions up by like 50 cents or $1, you'd make up that revenue. No questions asked. It wouldn't even be. Most people wouldn't even know it.
If you remember back,
charge season ticket holders a little bit more.
Charge them just a hair more, or I don't know. If you're chopping 5 or 10 games, or 5 home games, 5 away games. All of a sudden, maybe they're going to be playing kind of like back. I don't know if they still do it in the National League. I know pitchers don't hit anymore, but you remember when they have the interleague games where, like, let's say a team from the AL whatever doesn't really ever see a team from the NL whatever. Those games, for a Penguins fan, like, if they never played the Kraken, but they get one Kraken game a year, like, and I don't know, it all of a sudden adds. What do you call that? It's like a must-have ticket because it only happens once that year. You're gonna get people that wouldn't show up for those games are gonna show up more, or they're gonna, I don't know. Those billionaires, they'll find a way. Those guys are the greasiest people on the planet. They'll find a way to make their money back. But I'm on board.
They need to find a way to. Yeah.
I feel like if it gets handed out mid-June, late June, I don't know. That's just too late. I think like you said, it doesn't feel like hockey weather anymore. It doesn't really. It's weird seeing people in Florida like pass the Stanley Cup around, and it's because it's the hurricane season down there, and it's raining. It's like 100 degrees. Like, I don't know.
And I think you lose a lot of casual fans that could be tuning in because, see a guy that would want to watch hockey in the playoffs, but like if he has an opportunity to sit outside by the fire on a 70-degree night, having a couple beers and a hot dog, he's going to choose to do that rather than sit inside and watch a hockey game that if he even has a team, he can watch. I mean,
people are golfing, baseball seasons in. If you're in a city that has a baseball team, a lot of people that even aren't that big of baseball fans, once baseball season comes around, it's a hot ticket to get to the park.
But there's also just a lot to do this time of year. Like, even if it's not
true, you're not sitting in front of a TV all the time.
No, you're not. There's a lot to do this time of year, regardless of where you live. So, I think Memorial Day or the first couple days in June would be optimal. But this stuff that's going on now until the 20th, 21st, it's too much.
Ken Reed from Sportsnet, I think who he works for, he said, love you, but gotta wrap you up by May long weekend, Memorial or whatever. I'm on board with that. Wouldn't that be sick? If Stanley Cup gets handed out on a long weekend and you can just sit and get just absolutely pin it through the floor, drinking cold beers and barbecuing and watch whoever you want or whoever's playing lift the cup. On board with that. But I just wanted to bring that up because I hear about it a lot. I think some people don't care. Some people think it's ridiculous. And I think we'll see. Because isn't there a CBA possibly happening soon? There
was rumors that one could be announced when Bettman had his press conference Tuesday before the Stanley Cup final. But Elliot Friedman does believe that a new one or a revised one, an extended one, whatever you want to call it, is not too far off, and it looks like it'll be announced at some, not necessarily during the final, but not long into the summer or something like that. That's where his what he's hearing on it.
If that comes out soon, we'll have to do a podcast about that because it sounds boring, but there's some interesting tidbits that are going to be happening.
There's always interesting tidbits, yeah, especially when it comes to like cap stuff and like Olympics, World Cup of Hockey stuff. Like, there's always a lot of like. Obviously, a lot of boring stuff. It's just about like escrow and all that kind of revenue sharing. But there's also a lot. There's a lot, especially when it comes to like buyouts and how
carrying carrying an e-bug goalie with you. All that. It's stuff that you don't really think about, but it will affect the game. Yeah, until it happens. Until it affects your team or players you like. So we'll watch out for that because that'll be interesting to go over. I'm not going to read the handbook and I'm not educated enough to understand it all, but there will be some bullet points that we could talk about when that happens. So but other than that, Robbie, we're close to an hour here. We talked about the coaching hiring, a little late to that one, but we had to touch on it. We talked about this first game that happened of the Stanley Cup final, the first game of the Stanley Cup final. By the time people are listening to this, it'll be the eve or the morning of game 2. In Edmonton. So we'll probably be back to cover that as well. And, there's, like Robbie said, there's going to be some news popping up here every once in a while because we're getting ready for the draft. Dubas is getting his team, his staff finalized and ready for the off season. So we'll have lots of stuff to talk about from now till July 1st, I'm sure.
We absolutely will. And it'll go right from the final to the draft to free agency, and we'll keep it rolling.
We will indeed. But Robbie, that's all I got. Unless you got anything else you want to chat about, why don't we wrap this up then?
That sounds good to me. So, Penguins hire Dan Muse as the next head coach. The Stanley Cup Final Game 2 is later this evening, so tune into that. But for Snail, I'm Robbie. We'll talk to you guys here in a little bit.